Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Ryan Sherba. I am the editor and writer for the Balkan Insider daily newsletter. We're the only Washington, D.C. based newsletter focused on the region. And today I'm very happy to be sharing the screen with somebody I've gotten to know over the past year or so, Aleksandar Djuricic. He is the president of the Serbian American Leadership Conference. And he's also just finishing up at law school, so congrats on that.
Thank you.
So if anybody has any questions, please type them in the Q&A. We're going to try and get to as many questions as possible and hope for a good discussion. So Alex, first, what is SALC? What is the Serbian American Leadership Conference? What was the motivation behind it? You don't see too many new diaspora organizations popping up.
Absolutely. Well, first, let me say, Ryan, thank you for the invite, and Ari. I appreciate very much having the opportunity to talk about SALC and having the opportunity to take part in the series. I think the series is very important. I'm excited about hearing the other representatives from the other ethnic organizations being a part of this. I'm a regular daily follower of Balkan Insider. Not a morning passes where I don't take a look and see your updates. So I think it's very important that we all kind of work together and we have an open line of communication, because only through communication between the different ethnic groups and having intermediaries can we achieve what I think we all want to achieve ultimately, which is prosperity in the region. Regarding SALC, so SALC has been kind of something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I've always been very politically inclined. From a young age, I've always been active, always been passionate about that. I majored in political science at DePaul. So it's always been something important to me. And over the years, there used to be the Serbian Unity Congress. And in the meantime, I had co-founded 28 June, which is now a humanitarian organization. I left that organization a little bit early on, but I was a co-founder. And just things got busy with life, so I wanted to move on. And so this was kind of something that was building, especially as we saw the Serbian Unity Congress kind of step aside. There was a definite void in our community. And so a major part was Neno Djordjevic, who was a good friend of mine and somebody I had an opportunity to meet at the 100-year celebration of the centennial celebration of the Serbian flag flying over the White House, where I had actually had a great opportunity to meet many of these people who are now a part of SALC and who I've made these connections and who have been advisors and who've been teaching me and the rest of the group about what a successful ethnic organization in America does and the work that they should do. So the SALC's goal is kind of, we look at it as in three stages. Our community is clearly a little bit disorganized. And I think that's been a long issue, probably since the days of communism. We've kind of haven't been able to galvanize generations that have come after the initial generation that came after 1945, that built all the churches, built all the community centers. And so, the goal was, first, let's identify who do we actually have in our community. Without identifying who we have in our community, it's difficult to go forward. And so that was kind of the first stage of what our goal was as SALC, was actual identification. And one of the ways that we've gone about that is kind of really putting an emphasis upon the recent census. And I encourage all the other ethnic communities that, we've kind of gotten into the process here 1 month in since the official census day. And I encourage all the other ethnic communities to prompt their communities to do the same, is to have Serbian Americans, whether first generation, second generation, third, fourth, whatever the case may be, have them identify as Serbian American, just so we can all see, who do we have, where are we located? We can find areas where we can concentrate efforts, organize, reach out to people specifically, and go from there. So step one was obviously identifying. And our second phase of our organization is to obviously organize those people that we've identified and kind of bring them together. So, what we've kind of looked to do is, the reason Serbian American Leadership Conference, it's kind of grown out of two perspectives. One was His Grace Bishop Irine, who had a similar office set up in the 90s, and also a structure built off of the Democratic Party, who had intended to create these kind of ethnic groups that would arise and then be their own structure within the Democratic Party. And so that was kind of how it arose. And the reason it became Serbian American Leadership Conference was we want to be a place where Serbian Americans can really come together. And part of that was creating a conference every year in Washington, D.C., where we can come from across the country, meet each other, get to know each other, and at the same time become informed about issues in DC, about how the political process works, about being civically engaged. That's very important for us to be able to build these bridges between each other, and that's kind of been the hope. Unfortunately, we were planning on doing a summer conference here as our first annual, and again, it was built off of the Centennial, which I think was a great first step, and it's kind of built in that spirit. Unfortunately, like I said, COVID-19 has impacted our ability to do that this summer, but that's something that we want to do annually, and we want to be a critical part of our organization. And then third, obviously, once we're able to identify, organize, the third aspect is to do something with that. And the doing of that is to inspire Serbian Americans to become more civically engaged, educate them how to become engaged. A lot of our problem has been, we're very successful, we're very hardworking, but we tend to be focused on our families and maybe local communities, and we don't understand how to more branch out. We don't understand how Washington works. We don't understand the political process. And so part of that is us as an organization being the ones to educate them and raising awareness on issues that we feel impact our community as in America, our local communities, community in America, and also that affect Serbs in Serbia and Republic of Srpska. So those are kind of three things that we're working on. Let's say a 5-year kind of goal for us is to build and work on those things for SALC.
That's great. It's always good to have more of these organizations around. It's unfortunate to hear about your conference being canceled in the summer, but I think it did give you guys a unique opportunity to host webinars similar to these. You recently had U.S. Ambassador to Serbia, Godfrey, on, as well as Serbian Ambassador to the U.S., Matkovic. I was wondering if you could just talk about what insights you got from those conversations. How it was with them with coronavirus, particularly dealing with the response, because the U.S. has done a lot, but it isn't highlighted as much as I would personally like to see it be.
Absolutely. So it was, in this unfortunate situation that is COVID-19, we had a great idea to begin this leadership series. And this leadership series was intended to kind of take advantage of the platforms that are available to us in the 21st century, video conferencing, social media. And so part of the leadership series was, one, we wanted to connect people, as you mentioned, with the government officials and diplomats, and also connect our community with successful Serbian Americans. And so part of that has been now, as you mentioned, we've been doing it for a month. In the last 4 weeks, we've done Ambassador Godfrey, we've done Ambassador Matkovic, we've also done Crown Prince Aleksandar of Serbia, His Royal Highness. We've done, and then just 2 days ago, we did the President of Republika Srpska, Željka Cvijanović. And coming up, we also have some great discussions with Father Sava Janjic. So again, a variety. And then next Monday, Dr. Vladimir Marinkovic, who is the founder of the Congress for Serbian American Friendship in Serbia. And the following week, Ambassador of Bosnia, Bojan Vujic, and the 18th, Vuk Jeremić. And so we're really trying to get who's the leader of the Narodna stranka, the opposition party in Serbia. So we're really trying to bring a wide variety of people into our discussions and have the community here and have other communities here, how we interact. And so some of the things we talked about, obviously with both Ambassador Godfrey and Ambassador Matkovic, were COVID-19, the response by the U.S. government, the response by Serbian government. In terms of the U.S. government, it's been I think a struggle, because as we have struggled as a nation to kind of cope and have the proper equipment and get the things that we need, it's been difficult for the U.S. to step aside and take time to help others, especially Serbia. But it's been great what they've been able to do, in terms of helping U.S. citizens evacuate and get back home, and chartering with Air Serbia has been great in terms of helping to facilitate that. And actually, I believe it was at no charge that Air Serbia did that. Other things that they've done is obviously USAID has provided, I believe, over $1 billion, not during this period, but generally in the lead up. The U.S. government is also, and the State Department have worked to provide a lot of testing kits, recently hygienic packets. So they're doing the best that they can, and it's been kind of difficult as you had mentioned. There's a lot right now in Serbia about the talk of the Chinese help and then the Russian help, and they're just at a different spot than we are. China had an earlier opportunity to face COVID-19, and so they've been able to come out sooner. And as a result of that, and manufacturing kind of being primarily of those products being in China, they've had an easier time of exporting and helping other nations, including Serbia. So COVID-19 was, a big topic, and is also in both conversations kind of the Serbian government's response to COVID-19. And it was, it's clear that the response is pretty tight. But as Ambassador Godfrey said, and as President Vučić said, Serbs are difficult people to deal with sometimes. We're very hard-headed. We're very freedom-oriented. And so, sometimes people have a difficult time listening. And so I know from my wife's experience, her family lives out in Smederevo. And, early on when the measures had begun, people in the city were struggling to listen. Even though the piazza, the markets were closed, there was issues with people kind of standing in front of the piazzas with their stands, and people sitting at the cafes. So I think the government has tried to tighten some of those restrictions, because, as we know, I think is the case of most of the ethnic communities in our region and countries. The healthcare system can't really handle, it hasn't modernized enough to be able to cope with an exponential rise in coronavirus or COVID-19 cases, like the United States, who's at 60,000, I think, deaths now. And so, and they're barely able to cope. So imagine applying that to Serbia. And so it was good to hear kind of from Ambassador Godfrey and Ambassador Matković the reassurance that these measures are working, that they're being done for a reason. They're not just being done to clamp down on the people, and that they're keeping, especially U.S. Ambassador Godfrey, his comment that if the U.S. Embassy does feel that freedom is being restricted overly, or the measures are becoming overextensive, that the U.S. Embassy will definitely step up, and they'll say something and put some pressure in order to kind of pull those back. But it's good to kind of see that hopefully Serbia's kind of started to move out of that phase. As May 1st, the holidays are coming up here, their government's trying to ease. Essential workers it seems like have been expanded. Some other work will be expanded. And I think hopefully by mid-May, I'm hopeful even in the U.S., by mid-May, end of May, we can kind of balance public safety with the balance of our economies. Because I think the difficult part for all of us globally is, how are we going to recover from this economic situation? And so it was good to talk to them about those kind of issues.
No, that's great. We actually have a write-in question asking about whether or not you cooperate with any political parties or movements from Serbia or the Republika Srpska entity in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and if so, they were wondering, how is that cooperation being materialized? Is it financial support? Is it backing? Things of that nature.
Right. So while no financial support, no backing, we are a neutral organization. Regardless of what the future may hold, we will always be neutral. Whether it is in the U.S., Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, whatever that situation, Green Party, we're always going to be neutral. In Serbia, we will always remain neutral as well, whether it's with the ruling SNS, Srpska napredna stranka, whether it's the Narodna stranka, smaller parties, the Savez za Srbija as an entity as a whole, Dosta je bilo, just all across the board, our goal is to be neutral, because my personal belief, and I think I represent the voice of a lot in our group, is that there are good ideas from everybody. And there's no reason to restrict yourself to one group or the other and say, we're not going to listen to this, or we're going to push one aspect or the other. That should be the case in America as well. People should be independent thinkers. We should be free-minded. People from across the party lines can come together, and they could have good ideas. And especially in difficult times like this, COVID-19, the economy, and going forward, we kind of do need to work together. We got to reach across the aisle, regardless of where that may be. Our context with those people, obviously, we've been having context. We've been meeting with, obviously, we've had the Zooms with, U.S. Ambassador Matkovic, so that goes through the embassy, so that's the Serbian government. We have Dr. Marinkovic coming up, so obviously we've connected with the ruling party SNS. We have Vuk Jeremic coming up, so obviously there's a connection with the Narodna Stranka. And again, it's just opening the planes of dialogue. We plan on doing the same thing as we did at Republika Srpska. We connected with SNSD, with President Sijanovic. Hopefully we'll be able to do SDS, for example, who is the opposition party. In Croatia with the Samostalna Demokratska Srpska Stranka and Milorad Pupovac, and any other of the minority Serb parties, and just kind of working all together. Our goal is that we feel there are certain issues that unite the Serbian people, wherever they may be. And on those issues that politics can be put aside, and we can come to an agreement, we can come together and we can discuss. And we hope to be able to facilitate that, and primarily facilitate that through the Serbian American community, because that's first and foremost our priority. We have, for example, in Chicago, I think we have over 13, 14 churches and community centers. We have all across the country, and generations now, and are probably going to, the waves are not going to be as much, because I hope there's going to be a future of peace and prosperity and stability in the region, that there's not going to have to be these waves from any of the ethnic groups coming into the U.S. So I think all the ethnic groups kind of need to think about, how can we reach the second, third, fourth generation of individuals that have been here for a while, that are married, that may only have 25%, quote unquote, blood, and how we can use those groups together to attract those members, and so we can maintain our community centers, maintain our churches and mosques and temples, and just keep, so that's our number one priority. And I think in the meantime, as I said, is just kind of continuing to build bridges between these different groups.
That's great. I do like having a lot of people from the region over. I'm a big fan of Chavapi myself, so the more people, the better.
That's right. That's right.
So there's a question from somebody in the audience as well. They're wondering, essentially, is there any plan to simplify origin citizenship? For example, let's say I'm born in the U.S. And I have a Serbian dad. Is there a simple way for me to go about getting Serbian citizenship?
Ooh, that would be a question that I would have to pass on to Ambassador Matkovic and the embassy and the consul. I wouldn't know. I think there has to be, I know from my experience, I'm a Serb from Croatia. So I think from my experience, I know that I can attain Croatian citizenship when I want, being that I was born there. My wife was born in Serbia, so she still actually maintains her Serbian citizenship as along with her U.S. citizenship. But I think there has to be some kind of connection. I'm not going to give you an answer that I don't know about. But if whoever that is, they can feel free to reach out to me, and I'll do some research, and I'll contact the embassy, or somebody from our team can do that. Our email for anybody that may be interested is info@serbianleaders.com, and our website serbianleaders.com, and @serbianleaders at all the other various social media platforms. So feel free to reach out on those type of questions where we may not have an answer immediately.
Good. So there you go. Definitely reach out to the Serbian American Leadership Conference for any of that information. We did have a question coming in from the Institute of Foreign Affairs and Trade in Budapest.
Interesting.
And so it's kind of a two-pronged question.
Okay.
So what's the attitude of Serbs in the U.S. About current issues in Serbia, particularly EU integration, which of course is a priority, as well as Kosovo. And building on that, what do you think of U.S. diplomacy in the Balkans, particularly Ambassador Grinnell's policy with the Kosovo-Serbia dialogue?
Just writing these down. My memory is not the best, and when I start talking, I'll forget some of the points. So the EU integration. So let me just say first, obviously, I have a large network in the United States of Serbian Americans. I have a good gauge. I grew up in the community. I spent, I considered myself 4 days out of the week American, and then 3 days out of the week I was Serbian as I, went to dance practice, and then the community centers on Saturdays, and then Sundays, Sunday school. And throughout, my teens and 20s, I really traveled a lot. I've gone to a lot of the events. So I have a good idea of a gauge of the Serbian American community and a large network. And a lot of people reach out to me with their thoughts. But again, I can only speak for myself and as SALC as an organization. I think, we are Serbian American. And so our goal is to facilitate discussion between the U.S. government and Serbia. We shouldn't be the ones, for example, myself, I'm not a Serbian citizen, and I don't live in Serbia, so I don't feel it's right for me to determine how the people of Serbia should live their lives, what should be the structure of their communities, and that's the case for a lot of our members. I think some are Serbian citizens, some are not, some are citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina, some are just U.S. And so it's difficult to kind of say one way or the other. Our hope is that regardless of what the decision may be, is that we can kind of be an intermediary between the Serbian people and the American people and the Serbian government and the Republika Srpska government and Bosnia and Herzegovina government and Croatian government and the State Department and our representatives in Congress. So I think it's difficult to say about EU integration. I think personally, we are a part of Europe. That's inevitable. Our neighbors are becoming a part of Europe. And so I think those are, among other considerations, our major trade partners are Germany and Italy. So we are tied with the EU. Now, whether or not, it's a formally, EU accession, that's up to the Serbian government and the people living in Serbia, but regardless of whether it's EU, whether it's kind of more independent, whether it's some kind of Eurasian Union, whatever the case may be, I think it's important that we focus on the critical aspect, is that we all need to work together. We all need to trade. The only way we can maintain peace and prosperity in the region and the world is by trade. One of my favorite quotes is by Milton Friedman, and he talked about the great virtue of a free market system being the fact that it's the only system thus far that we've come up with where people that hate each other and that are of different races and groups can come together and appreciate one another through the exchange of goods. So that I think that's something. I'm a proponent of what I call the 90-10 rule. We can agree, if we agree on 90% of the things, there's 10% that doesn't have to divide us. And I think we can all agree that a better life standard for all in the region, all in the globe, is a 90% perspective for all of us. We all want to live better. We're in the 21st century. We're in the age of technology. We're going to be rapidly growing. So any kind of formations, structurally, whatever they may be, they're all going to be focused regardless on free trade, friendly relations, working together, coming together. So, to finish that point, whatever the case may be with EU integration, ultimately that the Serbian people decide, the Serbian government decides, we'll support and we'll do whatever we can to help facilitate those kinds of points. And then, so Kosovo, that's, I believe, the second point. Kosovo is obviously, Kosovo and Metohija is obviously a thorny issue. I don't speak for the Serbian people. I don't speak on behalf of the Serbian government. I can't speak on behalf of the entire Serbian American community. I can speak on how I personally and SAL kind of view it. Kosovo and Metohija will always be and remain a critical part of the Serbian people and Serbian culture. But that doesn't mean that we can't work together That doesn't mean we can't compromise, that we can't have a dialogue, have an open line of communication. That's the important part here. There's instances where you get in conflicts with your family, and you can't agree, and you gotta do things to get over it. And we don't have to be family. We don't have to, but we have to respect each other. And my grandparents and my parents always taught me, love who you are, but always respect others. And so I think that's the guide that we all need to kind of use. And we all need to understand, I don't think anybody lives in some alternate reality where we don't understand that we all have our own self-interests, that we all have our own perspectives on things. And the point is, we have to realize that you have to compromise in some cases. I would hope that Kosovo and Metohija, the current state of Bosnia and Herzegovina, in terms of the Dayton Agreement, that we can kind of put the 90s behind us. What we have in place now, we can kind of move forward with, and go forward and just think about the future and things that can kind of bring us together. So as I said, the Kosovo issue is difficult, but I think, to tie it to the third question, I think it's great to have Ambassador Grenell in the conversation. That I can support. I think a lot of Serbs do support that, regardless of where they may be, because of the fact that he has put such an emphasis on this open dialogue, on no reciprocity, moving forward, a focus on prosperity in the region, focus on economics, bringing it back to that the administration is mostly focused on the economic aspect. Ambassador Grenell has mentioned, and Ambassador Godfrey in his discussion as well, that the U.S. is interested in not putting any type of solution forced onto the people, onto the Serbian people, onto the Kosovars, onto the Albanians, but that it's got to be something that everyone can come together and agree on, because in the end, we're the ones that have to live it. And so I think it's important that having Ambassador Grenell there to help facilitate the conversation. Ambassador Grenell is ambassador to Germany as well, which is great. As I mentioned, Serbia is a partner with Germany. The Albanian people have a lot of ties with Germany. And so having Ambassador Grenell as an ambassador to Germany, and also acting director of national intelligence, and now the special envoy to Kosovo, and it's a great way to bring in a lot of parties to discuss what is the best way to move forward. Because I think in the end, we have to move forward. There's got to be some way that we can move forward so we can focus on the things that are really important. As we're discussing these things, and not to say that territories are not important. I don't want that to be misinterpreted. But what I want to say is that as we focus on some of these other issues, the rest of the world is kind of moving forward, and so we should focus on technology and advancement in that aspect. We're talking about singularity and 5G networks and instant transmission of data, and we need to start moving and thinking about those things so we don't stay behind as we kind of been in the 90s due to the conflicts, due to sanctions, and due to these other things. We gotta start playing the game ahead of the curve. So I hope that can, Ambassador Grenell coming in will really help to bring the sides to the table, understand that each side has their interest, and that we can work together to maybe find a solution that we can all be happy with.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who lived in Kosovo for 2 years, I know how it can be a struggle living down there. Especially it being always being one of the poor areas of Yugoslavia. Right. But you mentioned looking towards the future, right? So have you had any contacts with any of the other regional ethnic associations, whether it be with Croatians, with Bosnians, Macedonians, Montenegrins, so on and so forth?
So at this point, we have not. Obviously, we've only incorporated since December, so we are new, and there's a lot of work. Obviously, we're the new kid on the block, and as I'm sure the other representatives know themselves, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work, especially in cases where it's a volunteer job. This is not a job. I don't get paid for this. None of the rest of us in this organization get paid. We do this because we care about this. We do this because we care about our community. And I'm sure that's the same feeling across the other ethnic groups. But what I do hope, I did have an opportunity to meet several others, not just within this region. For example, our VP of Strategic Partnerships, Nano Djordjevic has done a great job of facilitating even Balkan and broader connections with, the AJC, American Jewish Committee, the Hellenic American Leadership Council. We've been reaching out to the Armenian National Committee. And I had recently a great opportunity to meet also with, in DC when it was Serbia Day, Metodije from the United Macedonian diaspora. So, and it was great just to kind of begin a conversation and just to meet each other. And as I saw the list come out of the new upcoming speakers, first thing I did is I went and I followed all those organizations because I think it's important for us as well to have dialogue. Again, we're not going to agree on everything. I don't think anyone is under the impression differently, but that doesn't mean that we can't dialogue, we can't communicate, and maybe we can be a bridge, not just for our own ethnic groups to the U.S., but for our inter-community discussion and connection with the U.S. government and our governments. Again, we all need to work together. I'm very pro-community. I'm very pro-working together. I think life is too short to focus on the bad, and that there's enough for all of us to go around to be successful.
That's great. So it seems like you're very open to cooperation with other organizations, not only from the region, but beyond as well. Just to let everybody know. I urge
them to all reach out to me. I'm sorry. I urge them all, please reach out to me and let's talk and let's get to know each other and let's see how we can help each other, how we can learn from each other.
That's great. So definitely find him on Twitter and everything. So here you can put in a short plug for that as well.
Yeah, everywhere. I'm Alex Djuricic almost everywhere. And if not, I'm Alex Djuricic 3. So that's most cases Alex Djuricic. So
we have about 10 minutes left. So if there's any questions people want to get in, definitely feel free to type them in now. Switching gears a bit. If I'm an American, right, and I want to invest in Serbia, how would I go about doing that? You always hear stories like Vlade Divac is famous for his stories about how at one point he said he was like, I'll never be able to do business in Serbia,
right.
Which I think that's changed a bit over the years. And, if I wanted to invest or wanted to start a business, what type of organizations or companies should I invest in? Essentially, what's booming in Serbia right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm sorry.
No, and I was going to say, is there an easy way to navigate the system in Serbia? I mean, you mentioned before how for a lot of people here in the U.S., navigating the political system, the political process can be difficult. Bringing it over to economics, how would that be in Serbia?
So I think same for all the other organizations here. They would probably attest to this. It's very difficult to kind of, for us as Americans who are used to more streamlined processes to opening a business, to incorporating an organization. We filed a documents for incorporation with the Secretary of State, and we had a business. And then you file with the IRS, and you're ready to go. And so it's difficult to kind of navigate some of the things. And I can't tell you exactly how to do those things. One of the things that we have done as SALC is during our discussions with Ambassador Matkovic and President Svjanovic, and our discussions at other times with them, it's been an emphasis on how can we connect entrepreneurs? How can we connect businesses to Serbia? Small businesses, particularly, people that can hire 5 to 10. It's great to have large corporations, but we also need to have a growth of the middle class in Serbia and in the region. So the key is to figure out how we can do, how we bring those smaller businesses in. In our discussions with Ambassador Matkovic and Ambassador Godfrey and President Svjanovic, they're open to business in Serbia, Republika Srpska, and I'm sure the case is in the other countries as well. And so we have to figure out how we can convey that information, not only to our communities, but also to the broader American community and business owners. In Serbia, we have NCR, and Republika Srpska NCR has been a big role. Roaming Networks was actually a business that's in the district here, just west of me and where I'm at in Indianapolis. They're one of the businesses that actually come from Serbia to the U.S. Smuckers, Ambassador Matkovic talked about Smuckers coming in regarding buying fruits and jams, potential facilities. We talked a lot. He talked a lot about the growth in Serbia, 4.2% GDP prior to COVID-19, obviously, and huge investments in Serbia over the last year, combined more than he had mentioned the other 5 countries in the Western Balkans, actually, in the last year. So there's a lot of opportunity in Serbia and in the region. So it's, we need to figure out how we can build those bridges and create them. I think, recently The Economist had a great article about IT and about the booming industry in IT. And that's something that all of again, that's one of those things that I mentioned earlier is, how do we get ahead? I think Estonia, for example, I would bring up as an example. Estonia has really taken it upon itself to think ahead, think forward. What are the ways that we can use technology for the future? What are the ways that we can empower our citizens through technology? And so I think our region should kind of look at those things. I think Serbia has been looking at those things. The campaign recently with the Digital Serbia campaign and kind of emphasis on that. And I actually had I can't mention what it was, but I actually worked on facilitating something here in Indianapolis for Indiana with a IT company and an Indiana business, which was really great to see because, they didn't know anything about me prior to that. They didn't know anything about the people I was working with prior to that I had any connections, and it was just on their own. So obviously people are recognizing specifically for Serbia, this IT industry and its growth, because that's one of those industries that are very easy to do. You can do it from home on your computer. As we've all noticed, it's very easy to work from home. It's very easy to be in touch with people. So I think IT and then in regards to our organizations is facilitating those contacts between IT companies or other companies, American companies back over.
So we have a question in. So basically said, Alex spoke about encouraging the Serb diaspora to become more civic-minded, which of course is important, and business. And then this person was wondering if you could touch a bit more on how U.S. citizens might play a role in improving state-to-state relations.
In terms of, could that person clarify into state to state in between Serbia and Kosovo or Indiana, Illinois, for example?
It seems like it might be more like, for example, the NATO partnership program, like Serbia and the U.S.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, those programs are great. One of the things Ambassador Matkovic actually talked about was the military-to-military ties between the Ohio National Guard and the Serbian military. And so, and what they've done through that, building on that partnership, they've turned it into a civilian partnership. So there was a large discussion, and that's related to kind of the Smuckers discussion that I mentioned earlier. There's, through that military-to-military partnership, there's the opportunity to create these civilian partnerships, agriculture. I forget, he had mentioned universities, education, addressing climate change, using some of these broader partnerships to, connect, building on sister cities, creating more of those kind of relationships, creating closer ties between, like, as you mentioned, states that are similar. One of my hopes personally is to help connect Indiana to Serbia, to the Republika Srpska, facilitate businesses from here. And I've been in touch with the International Center here in Indianapolis, and obviously we were going to meet, and then COVID-19 hit. And so that kind of put a setback on that. But it's just a matter of using all of these connections, using connections between the different Serbs in the various states, different Serbs who have businesses and corporations, and taking that knowledge, taking that experience, taking our network, and bringing that to the forefront to connect different people that need to be connected.
And I think you also have an excellent opportunity, to highlight some of the successes of the diaspora, including, one group of people that I never really knew about until I started reading a lot into them, was like the Serbian 7 who worked on Apollo 11, which, it doesn't get as much attention as it deserves. But using people like that, and even, as a big fan of sport, on the U.S. soccer national team, there's a Serbian American from Wisconsin, George Mihailovic. So how is it highlighting these successes within the diaspora to a larger audience to basically increase relations?
I think it's very important. I'm going to be honest, and I'm embarrassed. I didn't even know about the Serbo 7 and their contribution to the Apollo mission until 2 years ago. And it's really sad that, and I grew up in a large Serbian community, and I knew a lot of Serbs, and I think Chicago was maybe kind of isolated from the other parts because we were kind of big enough to where we didn't have to broaden too much. But, I had an opportunity to meet Mr. David Vujic, and an opportunity to discuss with him. And he's been a great help in kind of this whole thing because he's somebody who has experience actually in DC. And so, using those things are important, highlighting the people that have throughout U.S. history that, from the first Serbian American settlers all the way up till now, through Mr. David Vujic, Nikola Tesla, Mihailo Pupin, Honorable Branko Terzic, Jelena McWilliams now, FDIC chair. So, the more we can highlight these, Pete Maravich, I just saw a picture this morning of Pistol Pete Maravich from 1970 at a SNF tournament with his dad receiving an award. And I didn't, again, until this morning, I didn't even know Pete Maravich even attended a event in Alquippa, Pennsylvania. And so those are the ways by highlighting our really successful people, whether they be George Mihailovic. Actually, I played soccer for his dad when I was younger. I went to his camps.
Oh, wow.
And Nikola Jokic, Vlada Divac, as you had mentioned earlier, highlighting these people that have been staples of American culture is a great way to bridge, especially I think some of the misconceptions and some of the things that ended up unfortunately coming out of the 90s with the way people viewed the Serbian people as a whole, putting us under one umbrella as opposed to kind of analyzing it in a more broader perspective. And so using these people to be a highlight, Novak Djokovic showing that this is the example of who the Serbian people are. This is our values. This is our character, and we're putting them out front and using that to kind of change the perception of Serbs in the U.S. and across the globe.
Yeah, no, and it's great highlighting, the positives that the diaspora has brought to us. I mean, the amount of sports athletes that come from not only Serbia, but the region it blows my mind.
Absolutely.
So with that, I think we can wrap it up. I do want to highlight that we have 3 more of these diaspora leader conversations coming up with Balkan Insider. On Monday, May 4th, we have Steve Rukavina from the National Federation of Croatian Americans Cultural Foundation, 1:00 p.m., similar to today. On Thursday, May 7th, we have Meto Koloski of the United Macedonian Diaspora. And on Monday, May 11th, we have Ayla Delkic from the Advisory Council for Bosnia and Herzegovina. So again, thank you so much for joining us, Alex. I'm sure we'll speak soon, but I'm glad that you could come on and really provide some insight into the Serbian American community and your new organization.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Again, thank you for the invite, and thank you for all the information that you guys at Balkan Insider provide. I think it's a great way for all of us, again, as I said earlier, from the different communities to connect and meet. So I think we all have similar interests in mind here.
Great. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.